I'm doing it for my family. Man, that has got to be one of the most common lies that I hear men tell themselves over the past 13 plus years that I've been coaching. Because look, what if that is not something that your family has ever asked for? And what if what they really wanted was more of you? Maybe you've been missing it. Maybe it's been right in front of you this entire time. I asked a client just the other day, if someone asked your child what you do, how you spend your day, if they were going to describe you, would they speak of your artistry? Would they speak of your passions, of your hobbies? And you'd be so surprised to hear what his answer was. Because I think what our children and what our family sees of us might not necessarily be what's deep in our heart of what we want to represent and how we want to be showing up. Our true self can end up being invisible to the very people that we love the most. And then we tell ourselves that we're doing it for them. Before we get into it, my name is Oliver Manalesa, and over the past 13 years, I've been a guide for high achievers, helping them end the war within and unlock peaceful prosperity in their lives and in their businesses. If you've been feeling overwhelmed, if you feel like you've been out of alignment or disconnected from what matters to you, then please use the link below and schedule a guidance session with me. I would love to hold a space for you to be able to slow down, untangle the mess, and make your way back home to yourself and what matters most. Look, I think there's a trap here when it comes to this idea of I'm doing it for my family. Because in one direction, you can end up burying yourself in your work because of that motivation. And in the other direction, you can bury yourself in freedom, in your individual self and all of your passions and projects that are just your own. Look, I have seen it. I've seen it. It could be spending so much time with your friends, with your circle, with, so much me time, with all these side projects that never end, telling yourself, this makes me a better husband. This makes me a better dad. But look, if you're spending the majority of your time doing those things and it's robbing your children of your wife of your presence, then maybe you need to slow down and ask yourself, am I really doing this for them? I think there's the other direction as well, which is the more acceptable idea of I'm doing it for family. Whether you're doing it, you're overworking, you're overbuilding, you're spending all this time just being such a provider and such a earner and such a builder that you're not seen at home. You're not seen without the title, without the status, without the authority of who you are at work. And I think it's so important that we recognize that. I wonder if these are ways that we avoid the truth that we might not feel safe at home. We might not know how to be with our family's needs or be with the reality of where our family is actually at when it comes to this different space of just being family, of just being present, of just being playful, because we're so used to being in provider mode, or we're so used to just needing to escape and have our own thing that we need to do for ourselves, because maybe we can feel suffocated from all of the responsibility, and we're so hungry for our own space. And I think this is such a important thing that we need to ask ourselves, right? Like the client that I was mentioning earlier, and I've asked this question of many clients before, but in this instance, it was like, hey man, if someone's going to ask your child who you are and what you do and brings you to life, Is he gonna is she gonna describe your artistry, your passions, these things that make you come to life? And his answer was such an interesting one because he said, "No, I think my child would say daddy is a builder. You know, building business, building wealth, working, always focused on clients and showing up for people in this manner." And look, it's not that he isn't those things, and it's not that those things are wrong, but it's just realizing that the people that we say that we're doing it all for, how are they, how are we showing up for them? In terms of the qualities and the traits and the energy that we bring, are they going to describe us as the passions that we have, as the love that we bring, as the unique interests and curiosities? Are they going to speak to our connection with our spirituality, with our relationship with God? Or are our loved ones going to identify us mainly with the thing that we do? It's kind of startling in a way to know that the things that can truly matter to us can be buried by these things that we do and these things that we feel or we tell ourselves that we have to be. So this is an invitation for us to just slow down for a second. Just think, like, what would your spouse or your child say about you? And what parts of you are going unseen because of all of the things that you, quote, do for them? And maybe it's time to consider, what do they actually want? What do they actually need from us? And look, and this is a complicated, it's a nuanced question. I remember I was at this talk where Naveen Jain was speaking, and someone asked him this question. You're so busy, you have all these different businesses and all these different projects. Like, what about your family? What about showing up for your family? And he brought up this idea, right, that we're talking about today, of doing it for your family. And for him, he says, sometimes that means being at work. And sometimes that means being with them. And it's this level of discernment of knowing what season you're at in your life and in your family's life. Because I think we get so stuck as men being in one gear. And we get so comfortable being in that one gear. But if our family had a chance to say, like, hey, do you need to be better cared for in terms of money and working and building, or do you need daddy to be more at home and be more present and play more? If you gave your spouse the option, like, what would they want from you right now? And I think the answer is going to change depending on where you're at in your life. Do they need you to show up, or do they need you, in terms of being physically in proximity, or do they need you to be out there, outside of the cave and dragging something home? But I think we got to be honest with ourselves. When we say I'm doing it for my family, are we really doing it for them? Or is this our own need for status? Is this our own need for approval? Are we trying to prove our worth? Are we trying to avoid poverty? Are we trying to not become like our own Father before us? I think it's so important that we start to return to a place of being just a little bit more intentional, a little bit more purposeful. When it comes to your work or your business or your projects, sure, you can find meaning, you can find purpose in it. But what's the higher purpose beyond that? My friend, I think it's right under your own roof. I think it's the thing that you have the most direct influence and control over. You do not have to abandon your calling. You don't have to neglect using your gifts for good when it comes to your profession. But I think we got to stop lying to ourselves. We got to stop lying to ourselves about what our true motivations are. And then I think when we come back home to this place where we're not just physically there, but we're emotionally available, spiritually connected. We got to remember, we got to reconnect with the idea of, I'm not trying to earn my place in my family. I'm not trying to deserve the love, the validation of my family. I just got to be with them. You just got to be with them. My friend, if this sounds like you, then this is a reminder that slowing down is not a weakness. Doing less is not lazy. Being more present doesn't mean you're going to earn less. Doesn't mean that your work isn't going to get the attention that it needs. But I think sometimes at home, it's important that realize that the most generous gift that you can offer is yourself. You don't have to figure this out all on your own. And look, if this hits something inside of you, then I invite you to really sit with that. Be with yourself for a second, undistracted, and just think of like what came up just hearing this message today. Maybe you journal out, what does my family need from me? What do they actually want from me? Have I been authentic about this idea of I'm doing it for them? And if you want a sounding board, if you want somebody to hold space for you, then please use the link below and schedule a guidance session with me. It would be an honor to be of service to you and reconnecting with what actually matters. If that's something that you're not ready for, I invite you to check out my book. It's a digital book, audio book, The Daily Prosperity Method. I'll make sure the link is there below as well. Look, your beautiful life is not something to chase through earning more, doing more. It's actually right in front of you, and time will slip by. And I think it's so important that you realize that what's right in front of you, what's at home, are the blessings. God has given you such tremendous blessings already. Make sure to reconnect and make yourself available to relish and savor with what's already here. Until next time, be well.